Let's get into it. Leo rising for the year ahead, Aries to Pisces season 2022 to 2023. If we haven't met yet, my name is Shuka. I am a traditional astrologer that uses both Hellenistic and ancient Persian techniques in order to decipher the language of the stars and map out what's coming up for you. Feel free to like and subscribe for future videos that help you maximize your potential using the stars, like they say, as above, so below. In order to jump into the spring season, which covers Aries, Taurus, and Gemini season, we need to take it back a bit to December 29th, 2021 of last year, when Jupiter moved into your Pisces 8th house. Now this house deals with things like taxes, investments, and shared resources. And Jupiter being at home in Pisces, think of this as an expansion or abundance in this area of life. Definitely a growth period. And since February 3rd of 2022, all the way up until April 29th of 2022, all planets in the sky are direct. Think of this as a go, go, go vibe. It is really forward-moving propulsion. On March 20th, 2022, the sun makes its way into Aries, marking the beginning of the new zodiacal year and spring. And on April 4th, 2022, Mars conjunct Saturn in your Aquarius 7th house. Now, Mars being the planet of taking action or charging forward, and Saturn being the planet of restriction or boundaries, structure, and especially in Aquarius, loving the word no. Think of this as wanting to take action in this area of life, which deals with one-on-one relationships, business partnerships, contracts, and it coming up against a rejection or a no or a flat out like, this isn't happening. Don't worry, this too shall pass. On April 12th, 2022, Jupiter conjuncts Neptune in your Pisces 8th house. Be really careful here on anything that may seem too good to be true or putting something up on a pedestal. It's really best, especially given that this house is dealing with investments, taxes, and shared resources, to kind of hold off on any irreversible decisions until this transit passes. On April 29th, 2022, Pluto stations retrograde in your Capricorn 6th house. Now, Pluto is really a planet of like transformation or rebirth. And with it being retrograde in your Capricorn 6th house, which deals with things like physical health, subordinates, coworkers, and pets, expect to go internal and have a deep-rooted conversation sort of with yourself that leads to some sort of transformation in that area of life. On April 30th, 2022, there is a partial solar eclipse in your Taurus 10th house. This house deals with things like your public career and your public image, and eclipses being catalyzing events outside of your control, setting off a chain reaction that leads to a new beginning in this area of life. On May 10th, 2022, Jupiter exits your Pisces 8th house of taxes, investments, and share resources and enters your Aries 9th house, which deals with things like higher education, foreign travel, religion, morals, philosophy, and ethics. So this expansion is shifting into this area of life. Expect growth here. And on May 15th, 2022, there is a total lunar eclipse in your Scorpio 4th house, which deals with things like home, your roots, your foundation, and property. Total lunar eclipse, opposite to these solar ones, are catalyzing events that set off a chain reaction that leads to an ending of some kind in this area of life. On June 4th, 2022, Saturn stations retrograde in your Aquarius 7th house. So think going more internal on what restrictions or boundaries or structure you place on these one-on-one relationships. Taking us into summer season, which is way slower. This covers Cancer, Leo, and Virgo season. It is all about retrograde, rethinking, revisiting, reanalyzing. On June 28th, 2022, Neptune stations retrograde in your Pisces 8th house. So think going inward on creativity or ideals surrounding this shared resources, taxes, and investments. On July 28th, 2022, Jupiter stations retrograde in your Aries 9th house. So you just have this period of expansion and growth in foreign travel, philosophy, and higher education. And now it's a rethinking of the growth that's occurred there in that area of life. And on August 24th, 2022, Uranus stations retrograde in your Taurus 10th house. So think a rethinking of innovative solutions and how you implement them in your public image and your public career. Taking us into the fall season, which is much more active. This is Libra, Scorpio, and Sagittarius season. On October 8th, 2022, Pluto stations direct in your Capricorn 6th house. This house again deals with things like your coworkers, subordinates, pets, physical health. Think you've rethought about these deep-rooted beliefs that you may have here in this area of life, and there's a transformation moving forward or being propelled forward at this time. On October 22nd, 2022, Saturn stations direct in your Aquarius 7th house. So whatever structure or boundaries or, restriction you may have placed internally on yourself in this area of relationships, one-on-one, whether it be business partnerships or personal or intimate, it's sort of like it's coming back external and you're kind of ready to implement this into the structure going forward. On October 25th, 2022, there is a partial solar eclipse in your Scorpio 4th house. This house dealing with home, property, foundation, and roots. So think catalyst event leading to a new beginning in this area of life that'll play out over the course of the next 6 months. On October 27th, 2022, Jupiter retrograde moves back into your Pisces 8th house of shared resources, taxes, and investments. So there's a rethinking of the expansion that took place here between December and May. And on October 30th, 2022, Mars stations retrograde in your Gemini 11th house. This house deals with things like your social network, groups, organizations, and future goals. And with Mars being the planet of action, think of it as a rethinking of how you take action in this area of life. On November 8th, 2022, there is a total lunar eclipse in your Taurus 10th house of public image and public career. So think a catalyst event leading to an ending of some kind in this area of life. On November 23rd, 2022, Jupiter stations direct in your Pisces 8th house of shared resources, taxes, and investments. And if you remember back between May and July of 2021, Jupiter did dip into Pisces and was here briefly before retrograding back into Aquarius. Between December 29th of 2021 and May 10th of 2022, it dipped back in here for what we'll call like the climax period. So if the May to July was like the preview, and then December to May was like the climax or like the peak period of this. And think of this last period here as kind of like the wrap up before Jupiter makes its way out. It won't come back here for another 12 or so years. On December 3rd, 2022, Neptune stations direct in your Pisces 8th house of shared resources, tax, and investment. So think a moving forward with creativity or dreams in this area of life. And on December 20th, 2022, Jupiter re-enters your Aries 9th house of foreign travel, religion, philosophy, moral ethics, higher education, really pumping up the expansion in this area of life, taking us into the final season of the Zodiac winter season, which encompasses Capricorn, Aquarius, and Pisces season. On January 12th, 2023, Mars stations direct in your Gemini 11th house, dealing with social groups, networks, organizations, and future goals. So think you've rethought how you take action and you're ready to implement. On January 22nd, 2023, Uranus stations direct in your Taurus 10th house of public image or public career. So think that you've rethought innovative solutions and you're ready to implement those. And from January 22nd, 2023 to April 21st of 2023, we have another period where all planets are stationed direct. It is go, go, go time. Think propelling forward. On March 7th, 2023, Saturn finally leaves behind your Aquarius 7th house of one-on-one relationships, whether they be business or intimate, and makes its way into your 8th house of shared resources, investments, and taxes. So think a shifting of restrictions into this area of life, boundaries, and structure coming your way. There is a pretty intense day in March 15th, 2023. Mars in your Gemini 11th house, which deals with your social groups, networks, and future goals, will square Neptune in your Pisces 8th house of shared resources and investment. So think tension coming together between these two. And on March 16th, Mercury and the Sun join the party. So Mercury, the Sun, and Neptune, all conjunct in Pisces, will all be squared by Mars in your 11th house. So think mass tension between your social groups and your networks and your shared resources and investments. And Venus in your Aries 9th house of foreign travel, religion, higher education, philosophy will square Pluto in your Capricorn 6th house of physical health, subordinates, coworkers, and pets. So to quote Marin, it is a passive-aggressive mess. The good news is tension like this really helps bring whatever needs to be changed to the surface so that you have a better way forward. And lastly, it brings us to March 20th, 2023, where the Sun will make its way back into Aries, marking the beginning of a new zodiacal year. Let's go through the retrogrades. Remembering with all retrogrades, it's a time to use all the rewords, revisiting, reanalyzing, reviewing, not to start anything new. And definitely during the Mercury retrograde, retrogrades, be ready for delays, unexpected wrenches thrown into the mix, transportation issues, and definitely do not cut your hair. On May 10th, 2022, Mercury stations retrograde in your Gemini 11th house, dealing with social networks, groups, organizations, and future goals. It will dip back into your Pisces 10th house of public image or public career before stationing direct there on June 3rd of 2022. On September 9th of 2022, Mercury stations retrograde in your Libra 3rd house, which deals with communication, siblings, social media, news, your community and neighborhood, and it will dip back into your Virgo 2nd house, which deals with things like your personal resources, your finances, and values, before stationing direct there on October 2nd of 2022. And the last Mercury retrograde of this zodiacal year, on December 29th of 2022, Mercury stations retrograde in your Capricorn 6th house of coworkers, subordinates, pets, and physical health, until it stations direct there on January 18th of 2023. Getting into the other planetary retrogrades, Mars stations retrograde on October 30th, 2022 in your Gemini 11th house, dealing with social groups, organizations, networks, and future goals, until it stations direct on January 12th, 2023. On July 28th, 2022, Jupiter stations retrograde in your Aries 9th house, dealing with foreign travel, philosophy, religion, and higher education. It will dip back into your Pisces 8th house, dealing with investments, taxes, and shared resources, before it stations direct there on November 23rd of 2022. And Saturn stations retrograde on June 4th, 2022 in your Aquarius 7th house, dealing with one-on-one intimate relationships, business relationships, contracts, until it stations direct there on October 22nd, 2022. Getting into the outer planet retrogrades, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. On August 24th, 2022, Uranus stations retrograde in your Taurus 10th house of public image and public career, until it stations direct there on January 22nd of 2023. On June 28th, 2022, Neptune stations retrograde in your Pisces 8th house, which deals with taxes, investments, and shared resources, until it stations direct there December 4th, 2022. And on April 29th, 2022, Pluto stations retrograde in your Capricorn 6th house of subordinates, co-workers, pets, and being of service to others, as well as your physical health. It'll station direct there on October 8th of 2022. So to recap the eclipses, on April 30th, 2022, there is a partial solar eclipse in your Taurus 10th house of public image and public career. So think a external catalytic event that sets off a chain reaction of events that leads to a new beginning in this area of life, playing out over the course of the next 6 months. On May 15th, 2022, there is a total lunar eclipse in your Scorpio 4th house of home, property, roots, and foundation. So think a catalyst event setting off a chain reaction that creates an ending of some kind in this area of life, playing out over the course of the next 6 months. On October 25th, 2022, there is a partial solar eclipse in your Scorpio 4th house of home, property, roots, and foundation. This is a catalyst event setting off a chain reaction leading to a new beginning in this area of life, playing out over the course of the next 6 months. And lastly, there is a total lunar eclipse on November 8th, 2022 in your Taurus 10th house of public career and public image. So think a catalyst event setting off a chain reaction that creates an ending of some kind in this area of life, playing out over the course of the next 6 months. So that's it for your zodiacal year ahead, Aries to Pisces season 2022 to 2023. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe, particularly comment. I love to read how these zodiacal transits play out for everybody.